So here we are again with the Center for Education and Learning. The speaker here is Love. And again, I have the pleasure to speak with Peter Maxwell at Slattery. Peter, welcome.
Henning, it's good to go into, we could say in a way, part 2, but I think this will be 5th video we've done together, I think. So, yeah, this is good. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you, and as indicated. So this is the second part, or this time unique, also another recording. And this topic now for this recording is about galactic contact and beyond. This idea is from the last, so to say, or before the one recording we just finished. And it was about, as you said, let's do something about the C5 and how to communicate with our star sisters and brothers. And so, again, let's get directly into the question. The first question is, why and how to clear our own space for contact with our sisters, brothers in space?
So if we don't do some form of clearing, prayer, get ourselves into a positive state, what happens is, especially if you're opening up just to have an experience, you can have a positive experience, but there is just as much of a chance that you could have a negative experience, a trickster intelligence interface with you, and or an attachment. And so many cases I know of personally, working with so many people, that because they weren't aware of this, their life can go to crap quite quickly. Whether it's with their work, with their colleagues, people start to get possessed or overshadowed by negative influences around them. They start to have adverse health reactions in various different ways. Anxiety, drug addiction, acting and doing things that they would never do. Very much we could say what happens when you go through an awakening, but it's of a positive nature, that you start to become more loving, more caring, you're more conscious about what you eat, how you speak, the people that you surround yourself with. And this is why years ago I could see a huge correlation in a lot of experiences with house calls, with paranormal experiences, for example, where I could tell through speaking to people what we possibly could be dealing with. Sometimes wasn't a haunting or a residual haunting. It was sometimes extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial of a different nature, but it took a bit of figuring out to try and pin that down in some manner. But then the way that people were affected from these experiences, if it was something dark, everything, not just the individual, in some cases an entire family, have to sleep together in one room. And like I say, there's a big correlation that you start to look at paranormal experiences, hauntings, and then ET contact. There is a huge overlap. There is a difference, meaning a difference behind the intelligences behind it, but there is a big difference. I've spoken to people that are part of a lot of religious establishments, people that specialise in getting rid of entities, and some have come to me in some cases because they're out of the ballpark of what they've been taught, whether they thought, it was purely just demonic, and then they find out, geez, there's reptilians, there's, the jinn, which are, to me, you've got a whole host of dark entities and dark masters. Just like on the flip side, you've got a whole host of positive intelligences that are out there assisting people, and that there's actually a battle between those energies going on as well. So it's very important that, let's put it like this, you're setting the stage of what you want to interface with and what you want to surround yourself with. Do you want to surround yourself with people, in this case entities, that haven't got your highest interest in heart or in mind or in their essence? That's a big thing, because who you surround yourself with, like personally me, I love to surround myself with people that inspire me. They inspire me to be the best version of myself that I learn from. And I know that they do have the same effect because we're at that same level, meaning that's the intention of what we surround ourselves with. Therefore, we vibe to our tribe in that way, and that's what we interface with. Just like with contact, it's the exact same thing. So people don't have to take what I'm saying as gospel. I don't want anyone to believe me, but it would be irresponsible of myself and others like me to not state what I just did if they're going into this. Which is why I think one of the biggest books I've done, which is CE5, Initiating Contact, is really what I term that term. Clearings is a huge introduction in that book, and most books that I'm doing in terms of spiritual teachings, because if you don't have you right going into this, it's not going to be good. So it's really, you get yourself right, and then it's going to be right. If you don't have yourself right, or if you're not putting up a barrier in terms of protocols, in terms of a standard, we hear in life about having our own standards and not settling for second best and knowing what our self-worth is. Well, you've got to know that when it comes to the spiritual realm as well. So that's why it's important to be doing clearings before you even think about interfacing transdimensionally, which in a way, clearings are a safe introduction with that, because you're calling upon your soul tribe, God, source, creator, the angelic intelligences that are in line with the awakening healing of humanity, and also your star family and the celestial intelligences. You come at it from that standpoint, and you're invoking that and stating that, well, then that's what you're starting to work with, which is great because it's positive. But if you're just opening up to anything and everything, and people don't believe me, I don't recommend this, but then go and do that to the opposite of what I just said and start to see what happens and what you start invoking on the opposite side, which I do not recommend you even play with. There are times that I have provoked entities at certain places because that's what I was guided to in a certain setting or settings, to start to go, all right, you want to do this to these people, try and do this to me now. And that's where you start to see the activity. You can start to interface with that to where I've had to clear darker places. So this is not to be played with. There's many years that have gone through this and many effects it's had on my life. But through that, like I say, there's blessings and burdens. Those things were burdensome to others, including myself. And I've had to go and help people because I've got a yearning in me that I've had to do this. And when you're a vehicle for God to work through, you won't know why you're doing a lot of things. But this is important, what I'm stating. And for me, it was my form of boot camp. And you'll notice that even when you only work with positive beings, you will have the darkness rear its head to try, whether it's through past vices, through things that you love to do, or through triggers and trauma. They will try and exacerbate and see if those bullet wounds in your armour are still hurtful, to see if they can find it in. So even though you might be just invoking the interface with positive extraterrestrials and angelics, don't think it's all going to be la 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 either. It's not. If anything, they're going to rear their head at times in huge ways, because the light that you carry, they want to derive you of that, because these entities are void of light and they transmute that light into a form of luce or energy for them, so they can keep in the state that they are and keep affecting others. So this is where there's very much a balance of positive and negative. So I could go on and on really, but I'll leave it at that as to the importance of why.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And the second question is, who to contact personally, individually? In other words, how do we find out for ourselves how to individually contact which individual star brother, sister, maybe ascended master or source? How do we find that out? How do we get into that? Again, how to contact, or who to contact personally, individually, Peter?
So you may keep hearing about the same type of saint, sage, master, avatar, star race over and over again. People just out of the blue will be mentioning it to you. There may be just a trigger within yourself that you might hear, let's say, Pleiadian, and you're like, oh, that really resonates. It might be Archangel Michael or Buddha, you know, Padmasambhava. There's so many Baba G, you know, the list goes on. Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene. The list goes on. This is something that it happens in its own way, but it can also happen from you initiating it. Now, not a selling point. This is also free up online if it's still playing the way that I'd like. Recently, I bought out another 6 meditations that they're putting breaks in, which I've tried to get the breaks stopped. I can't. But the first 6, from what I know, they've got no breaks in them. So you can go to Spotify or YouTube. There's one that's called Star Family Reunion. As a technique, you clear the space, and then, as an example with this, I start calling out different forms of ET races. And when these beings are in your presence, whether they're on a ship, another planet, or even physically, or even non-corporeal, non-physically in your presence, their light body will overlap yours, and this is where you'll get goosebumps, hair standing up, temperature changes. The same thing as when they can land their craft, if they're purely non-3D, on you in apparition form. And like I've stated before, they can vibrate your consciousness on board. In your mind's eye, you might even appear on the craft. They can either pull your consciousness out and put you in an avatar as well. There's many ways with this. But when you go through a process like Star Family Reunion, and I'm calling out different races and giving you, let's say, half a minute between before I'm going to say the next one, you might feel an energy, you might not. And then all of a sudden, you might not throughout this meditation, but in most cases with people that have come to me or they've done these types of things, let's say I say Lyra, all of a sudden they could start bursting out crying. Their heart feels like they're blown wide open. They feel the old saying, if somebody's walked over their grave, like an energy or a goosebumps all the way up their spine or on their back, or this overwhelming energy or temperature change. That is in a way, to me, a litmus test of knowing, in a way, what you're connected to. But it's a lot of training that I've gone through and through my own interactions over many years to try and work out the mechanics, how each individual works. There's like a toolbox, but there's certain tools in that toolbox that people are better with than others. Some is inner visions, some is thoughts, feelings, epiphanies, concepts, ideas, temperature changes, goosebumps, hair standing up. There's a lot of different variations in that. So that is one technique, is even just doing a clearing and asking, your star family or beings you're working with, if they can give you a sign if they're working with you, and you might even just call out 5 or 6 different ET races or ascended masters within, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes. And one of them, you might even just get a thought about that you weren't even thinking about, and then you'll say that name and you can feel the energy intensify. But you've got to be very careful, because in some cases, if you don't know what you're doing, or you even let your guard down for one moment, calling upon certain intelligences, something can come and masquerade as something that it's not. And like I say, this is where if you start getting guilt tripped, told that you got to do something, you don't know why you got to do it, but it doesn't seem right. Like, meaning you know that it's not right, this is negative. Like I say, when God works through, you got to do stuff and you don't know why, but it's of service to others. There is a positive effect and chain reaction that happens from it. When it's stuff that isn't, you just know it. It's like with most people in their right mind, you know right from wrong when you're young. You just know not to grab a knife and stab somebody. You just know it. So these negative things can put thoughts in your mind, just like the positive beings can put thoughts in your mind. But you've got to be very careful about how you go about this. And this is why, with my conclusion years later about talking about this for so long, it's all about self-mastery, because if you've got you right, you will naturally have contact and realise you've had contact the whole time. And it's not just maybe with ETs or masters, but it's stuff you haven't even thought about until you acknowledge and have the revelation of, geez, there's a whole host of intelligences out there that people aren't talking about or isn't on my radar. So it's something that even just stating it, invoking it, and then just taking notice of thoughts, ideas, feelings when you're saying each race, or let's say ascended master, and then seeing what is the bio effect on you, meaning, am I getting goosebumps, hair standing up, temperature changes? Am I having strong thoughts, or seem like I'm getting thoughts, ideas, epiphanies, concepts, transmissions from this intelligence? If your eyes are closed, are you getting a vision of that intelligence? So I stated on the last video, just because some beings will appear a certain way or you'll have an experience, sometimes they make that experience up with your higher self or the aspect of you overshadowing the physical body, because your brain would not be able to decode or handle the true nature of these beings, even if it is a super blissful state. So what happens is they will decode it and dumb down the experience into like pockets of information and visuals that are digestible, and you're left with symbolic information. Otherwise, it's just beyond what you can perceive. So there is a lot of things to how this works. It's not just one or two things you can do, and it's very simplistic. But this is why practice and practice and practice, at least with the clearings over and over, what you'll start to get is more adapt with your own intuition, your own intuitive or psychic abilities. I prefer the word intuitive. And you'll realise that you've been having this all along. You just weren't educated on it.
Thank you, Peter. And again, here especially, this question, I hope, is absolutely beneficial for everyone who is interested in this, who thinks there is value to get from. And let's move on to the third question. Who to contact collectively to help humanity and all? In other words, what I'm asking here is, there might be those who are interested, let's say, in more personal information, but there might be those who also say, hey, let's use this for the greater good, and maybe we could amplify how we make the contact. So again, the question is, who to contact collectively to help humanity and all?
So this I'll go into for individually as well. I've said for years now, part of why I get the results that I do when people now are coming to the sanctuary, or when I've done sky watches in the past or other things, I believe not only is it because of the clearings, but also because I state pretty much all the time, whatever I need to experience to be a better whatever I need to experience to be a better human and be of service and have love and joy in my life, give it to me. That's the only criteria, and that is what the information should meet, that criteria. What's happening in a lot of cases, if you're hell-bent on communicating or interfacing with a specific species or intelligence, what you're doing is here. I want contact, but I want it in this way. I want a ship to land, but I want contact, but I want a ship to land. Yet do you know, you could be actually inside a ship, sitting inside your lounge room, and it's in another frequency, and if you're not in tune enough, you could be having the most amazing contact, but you aren't perceiving it because you're not there yet to understand the mechanics of contact. Yet there is also physical beings out there. I've experienced it. So because of that, you find that there are common races, like I've experienced, like with certain Pleiadian species and Sirian species, certain Orion. Now there's also positive and negative in a lot of areas, such as on the outer fringes of Rigel in Orion as well. So you've got to be very specific, and until you learn about specific races and specific entities and your own crew, that's what I wouldn't recommend, just going all out with anyone and everyone. Even here with the Stone Circle, where I've infused the energies with certain species that come in interface with those that visit here, I've gone through much safety protocols and clearings on a daily basis with that practice, so it's very safe. The other thing as well is that I would like people to keep in mind that even when human, we could say, in relations on a public level go galactic, because it's already happening behind the scenes, we can't lose our sovereignty. Meaning, just because we're going to start interfacing with other races on a public level, a lot of these we don't even want to be interfacing with, because they're working in such a way that there is dark stuff happening with trade, but there's also good stuff happening with other species, and there's different councils and conglomerates of species working together. Just because they may seem more evolved doesn't mean they've got your interests. They might bend the rules in trading a bit. They might try to have a bit more of a percentage of a post in an area than what they should, because they can see that they may intimidate you, because hey, I'm an extraterrestrial and I've got telepathy, I can read these people's mind, this, that, the other, the humans are aware of this, let's see what I can get out of this, and I'll say that I've got their back in situations. Humans are so powerful that they do not realise their full potential. And we have to learn that potential, but with that comes great responsibility. Meaning, we can't be manipulative to others with that. It's like, do to others how you want to do to yourself. Just because there's ETs out there and a lot of them seem cool doesn't mean they wouldn't, try to bend some of the rules. Doesn't mean they're out there to hurt you. Of course, if they wanted the human race wiped out, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. But there are specific Pleiadians, Syrians, like the Slattery that I work with there. There is, you look at the Lyrians, there's even positive and negatives of those factions. This is where it gets, very much like the human race. There are good humans and there's bad humans. So if you're clear and you put out the intention, like I say, and what I do every day with my practices, whatever I need to learn and experience to be a better person, be of service, and that brings love and joy in my life, that I can shower others with that, give it to me. And I might even interface with a race or a being, which does happen on and off, that I've never experienced before. But I've opened up to it because I've risen to the occasion. I've done it in a manner that is productive and beneficial. It's not just opening up again to anything. And so because of that, that's also why people experience a lot of phenomena and have experiences around me as well, because that's the stage that I'm setting. I'm not setting that it's got to be done this way or the other. These beings are dogs on nobody's leash. So there's got to be respect there, but I'd say that put God, source, creator, whatever you want to term it first, and if ETs come in, you could, great. If not, you might even have angelics or inner earth intelligences or something else come through. But that's why I say if you put God first, it's going to unravel how it's got to. But there's going to be huge transformational experiences that you're going to regret sometimes opening up. Going, should have I done this? Everything's gone to crap, and it's like, no, it's actually good, because what's happening is there's a purging of who you surround yourself with, what your own mindset was, and a number of other things, which is actually a way of like wringing out yourself spiritually and getting rid of all that doesn't serve you. And now you're, reset again, and you're at a new level, and now you were set to experience these things. So if everyone could experience these things straight up and they're at that level, they'd be already experiencing them, and there'll be no need for this conversation. It doesn't mean they're not worthy for it. I believe every single being out there is worthy to have these experiences, but is it of benefit, and how's it going to help you? And that's what it comes down to when the contact occurs. How is it meeting any of those criteria? If it doesn't, it's useless.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. I think I would like to highlight a few things. There is a lot of useful information in these recordings. These recordings, these sessions, interviews so far, I think, and as we continue, hopefully, there is always things I think we should highlight here and there. And as I said in the first recording, so to say, of these two, there's always things we should repeat here and there. And I would say information might get updated, or it might be worthwhile to come to a conclusion here and there, at least as a kind of moment in time conclusion. And ultimately, these recordings or these kind of short interviews is, as I see it, always an attempt to condense information as much as possible. And finally, I hope, again, this is beneficial for all.
100%. That's the reason I'm doing this, and that I've gone through what I have, and you go through your ups and downs going, should I continue? And many people in my position go through the same thing. So that's why I've got the sanctuary. That's why I've done what I've done out there. And people go to sell books, this, that, and the other. If they want them, great. If they don't, you can't live off any of that. I can tell you that now. But the only reason I'm doing all this is because every single fibre in my being has gone into this to be of service to help others empower themselves. And so that's the only reason this is being done. And I just hope exactly the same, that this has been somewhat food for thought, beneficial and enlightening for some people to take on board, not believe. I don't want anyone to believe anything. I want them to know. Doesn't mean I know everything either. But just it gets the wheels turning. It gets them to look at things from a different perspective or have an aha moment. So, yeah, bless you, Henning, for doing this, and I just hope it's been helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And we do that again, looking forward. And then, again, all for all the best, and all the best for all. Take good care.
Cheers, you too.